Hey guys, what's up? Week 153 here, and let's just start this off with the contest drawing for the Slaughterhouse Slumber Party. Yeah, we're gonna hop into this right now. We got 2 winners. So I got 42 entries. Let's see who wins. Why screw around? Let's just start right off. So, all right. I made them really small. So we have Bew Passholt. Bo Passholt. Yeah, I have your address. I should have it. I don't know if that's showing up for you guys. And we have number 2. I want to make sure I don't look. Number 2 is Don Quixote. Good name. Don Quixote, Don Quixote. So, yeah. So, congrats, guys. I'll ship that out. I have not shipped out the Patreon ones yet either. I was going to wait to ship them out together. I might actually reuse some of the old packaging I got because I really don't want to go to the store during this time just to get shipping packages. I think that's kind of, probably inappropriate. But, okay, I guess also, you know what, with all these, problems going on, there's a lot of indie directors out there who are kind of, struggling a little bit. So I wanted to take a time to shout out a Blu-ray of, her name was Christa, which I actually reviewed, but I haven't got a chance to check out the Blu-ray, but I did get this a while ago, and it is available. I'm just letting you guys know. It has a bunch of features on there. This is actually the film debut of James L. Edwards, who is an actor and stuff. Saw a bunch of the Tempe stuff like Bloodletting, and this has audio commentary, Indiegogo video, Search of Christina 2 minutes, auditions and rehearsals, Steven's interrogation, deleted extended scenes, Drew proposes, Alan has some time to kill, the missing track, a Mrparka video and trailers. It has a bunch of stuff on here. It's a nice release, double side on there too, double disc. And it also includes an slipcover that switches, which is a really cool one, kind of in the style EC Comics. I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was a really great kind of twisted love story horror movie. And I think that a lot of people would enjoy it if they check it out. It's actually very well done. So I'll leave some links below if you're interested in checking it out. So yeah, I guess we're going to hop right into the reviews. And I'm still with the dive in 1985, so roll that.
Biggest piece of meat in the game.
Let me ask you a question, kid. Did you see that movie, Night of the Living Dead?
Fresh bodies, fresh bodies.
What you love is a feeling when you're stopping her life.
Kill for me.
And he is not a welcome visitor.
What the hell happened to Rosemary?
You want a silver bullet, huh?
Legend is reborn in the all-new Godzilla 1985.
Perfectly normal for insects to be slightly telepathic.
Yeah, it's normal for insects. But am I normal?
Sandy.
Horror has found a new home.
There is no mercy.
Well just pissed me off.
Well, if that's the way you feel, forget it, Vic. Just forget it. But I think you're really out of line.
I hit the fucking brain!
It will scare you to pieces.
Fright Night.
Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning. Freddy's Revenge.
House. Cut and run.
Demons. Day of the Dead. The Return of the Living Dead.
Your journey ends here.
Welcome to Fright Night. For real.
This set is actually kind of it has the movie on there, but it's more of the set, and it's kind of an extended version of it, but I'm going to cover Roy Frumke's Document of the Dead. It's in this Dawn of the Dead box set, which is more of an extended. It's on disc 4. Okay, yeah, the original Document of the Dead ran 66 minutes. This cut is a little bit longer. It adds some stuff from Two Evil Eyes, etc. But I mostly want to talk about the original documentary, which is, like I said, 66 minutes. It's released on Blu-ray now, a definitive, and that version with it from Synapse. So yeah, Roy Frumke's decided, first documentary I'm covering from 1985, Roy Frumke's decided to document, kind of George Romero's, the making of Dawn of the Dead, but it also tackles things like Night of the Living Dead as interviews with the cast and crew, and it's narrated by no other than Susan Tyrrell, who's an outstanding actress, wonderful, Night Warning, all sorts of things. So that's really cool, and what is a crazy movie? It's right on the tip of my tongue. It's Forbidden World, or Forbidden Zone, I think. Yeah, that really weird one, Entering the Fifth Dimension. But essentially what I really liked about this doc, I had seen it before, but they talk about Night of the Living Dead, and you get to know George Romero a little bit, more of his filmmaking techniques and everything like that, and his style. And there's a really interesting part in here where George Romero's talking about editing, and he says, I don't edit movies typically how they say you have to with a master, and then I go and get, close-ups and everything like that. I just edit it how I feel I should edit it, and the coverage I get, what I feel I should get. So if it's edited very well, then no one notices these cuts that they don't think are supposed to be there. And I like that, because everybody knows that George Romero used to edit. You'd always hear those stories about him with a cigarette in his mouth, cutting up the film back in the day, because that's usually you have to edit on film, and he was very good at that. And as I always felt that a filmmaker, I know this was kind of wrong, a true independent should do more than one thing. They shouldn't just direct. Maybe they edit a little bit. Maybe they write a little bit. And somebody like Romero, I'm sure, I love that he was editing and everything like that.
Well, we shoot anywhere from 15 to 20 to 1.
Senores, please to let me pass.
I cover conversations with a master.
No, please. Just let me pass. I go up to 7th floor to find my sister.
And then with single headshots on everybody involved.
People of 107 will do what you wish now. These are simple people. They have little, but they do not give it up easily. And they're dead. They give up to no one.
Not so much cutaways. In other words, I'll cut to all of the people, or I'll use people as their own cutaways.
Many have died last week on these streets. In the basement of this building, we find them. I have given them the last rites. Now, you do what you will. You are stronger than us. But soon, I think, they be stronger than you.
And sometimes if I see a shot I like, I'll just go do it, almost on whim.
Let the dead walk, senores. We must stop the killing, or we lose the war.
Out here, shooting, I don't really think too much about the cutting. I'd rather let that happen, too. Except in tightly choreographed sequences like the truck scene and so forth, where I know what's cutting to what.
Like I said, he also has a great way of being highly intelligent without coming off as pretentious, which I think is a rare thing. It takes a special kind of intellect to talk to the everyday person and come across intelligent and get through. So many people want to use fancy words to get across their message, and it doesn't work with everybody. That's why I think Romero's movies come through so strong in his, social commentary as well as his own voice when he talks about his films, and I can see that here too. So he's always been my favorite director. So anything involving him has always made me very happy to watch and interesting. They also talk about how he uses, he fills the frame, how he uses, and he cuts with filling the frame very, well. Like in original Night of the Living Dead, how they do the graveyard scene with Bill Heinzman's chasing Barbara, and how they'll cut in certain ways and where the people appear on the frame. Like I never thought about a lot of this stuff in terms when I watched those movies when I was young. I just knew that the movies drew me in, and I didn't, if it was boring visual storytelling, then it would lose an audience. Somehow Romero keeps you there and with his editing and things. And I'm going to be honest, as a young person, like I never could spot sometimes, how they, there's a certain filmmaker, like a Tarantino you always spot, or a Sam Peckinpah, I always spot, this is a Peckinpah, this is a Tarantino. And Romero is my favorite director, but he took me a while to find his style, which I understood there's a lot of social commentary, but I feel like across his entire filmography, the stuff that's not from Pittsburgh doesn't necessarily look or feel exactly like it, but you can spot some of his things later on and stuff like that, especially in his social kind of commentaries. But I think in his earlier stuff especially, there's that visual style. When he edits his films, he didn't edit a lot of his later films, but I feel it more in his earlier stuff, that Romero style now. And same thing with like Wes Craven. It took me a while to pick up on him. There's the booby traps and stuff, but like certain elements, but it took me a while to see his visual style. And I'm not even sure 100% if I see it. Like Carpenter's visual style is there. Sometimes these directors, it's not within their visual style that makes them that auteurs, and it's in their actual, messages and things like that too. They all, not all their movies look the same. I just think a lot of Romero's earlier stuff kind of did, and I like that Pittsburgh kind of look too. But like I said, he's an interesting guy, and he has one of the lines that breaks my heart in here. And I don't know if this is from the original version necessarily or not. I don't think it is actually. It might be from Two Evil Eyes. No, there's a line in Dawn of the Dead when he's talking. It is from the set of Dawn of the Dead. And he brings up this point where Roy Frumkin says, well, night's the beginning and this is the end. He says, no, zombies are still dumb, man. And I love that. Like, he was planning this, the more Dead films afterwards. And then later in the documentary, when he's on the set of Two Evil Eyes, he has this really sad line where he says, the zombies keep getting smarter and I keep getting dumber by the day. And I just, he was, self-depreciative at the same time. He was somebody that would make remarks about, Hollywood and everything like that. But at the same time, he never came across as someone who was just whining for attention to me. So, R.I.P. George Romero. Like I said, he was the truest of independent directors to me, and wonderful, absolutely wonderful. I like the documentary. You get to see some like vintage footage, and Ken Foree's in there, and Scott Reiniger, and Richard Rubenstein, the producer, and everything. And I do like how they talk about releasing the movie unrated and all that kind of stuff. Took guts, and I'm glad they did it. He was one of those last kind of, he was one of the first independents, and he was always truly independent to me, even if he did some Hollywood stuff, but he just, never could make it in the Hollywood system. So, and again, like I said, there is some the end footage that they actually cut that was part of the original Document of the Dead. This version they put on the end, so you get to see everything from the original and some added stuff too. So, I would recommend probably picking up the definitive Document of the Dead, which I actually ordered myself on Blu-ray from Synapse. So I'll be checking that out to see the added stuff and everything. So yeah, it's a pretty cool documentary, especially if you're a fan of 70s cinema or George Romero.
This is a scene from Night of the Living Dead, a low-budget film co-authored, directed, photographed, and edited by George Romero in 1968. Already the head of a successful commercial production house in Pittsburgh, this was his first venture into feature filmmaking. Its flaws were mainly budgetary, while its virtues were clearly visionary, earning it popular success as a horror film and a cult following for exploratory uses of genre and technique. Style is difficult to define, but even in this disembodied clip, the technical aspects of Romero's style are making themselves apparent. They're in his cutting, his camera angles, in his two-dimensional design within the film frame. Great spatial movements from shot to shot, and even within shots. Just making films in Pittsburgh for 10 years has become a sort of stylistic statement. In January of '78, Romero and his producer, Richard Rubenstein, allowed a film crew from the School of Visual Arts onto the set of their latest production, the second part of the Dead trilogy, Dawn of the Dead. Using footage shot over one long weekend, a documentary took shape, focusing first on the filmmaking process and secondly on directorial vision. What part of it reaches the screen unhampered? What external forces affect it? But first, let's introduce our cast.
Okay, this next one is a short from Jörg Bucharest. Had to do his movie from '85, and this is Hot Love. This is kind of a limited edition DVD, but the Hot Love is also included in the Necromantic Cult Epics Blu-ray in HD, so that's really cool. So I would recommend picking up the Blu-ray from Cult Epics because it has two versions of Necromantic on it. But let's talk Hot Love. This was the short he made before Necromantic. He had made other shorts before, and this was a Super 8 movie. And Jörg Bucharest, he talks about not wanting people to know it was Super 8 because it was kind of embarrassing. It didn't seem very professional. And then later on, it seemed even more professional because it switched to digital. So that's kind of cool. But Hot Love is about a 45-minute short. The music sounds just like Necromantic. It sounds like you could have thrown that music in Necromantic and it would fit perfect. Probably the same composer. I believe it was. It actually has the same star of Necromantic in it as well. And he's kind of this punk. It follows a group of punks, and he's kind of lives in this kind of trashy room with beer bottles and Empire of the Ants posters hanging on the walls, that kind of thing. And Jorg actually makes a funny comment in the commentary about that not being a very good movie, but it had giant ants, which I loved. Yeah, so he ends up meeting this girl at this punk kind of party. They start a relationship, and we have this love story for quite some time. And one day, he catches his girlfriend cheating on him with Jörg Bucharest actually playing a character in this. And he gets beat up, he leaves, he's upset, and he decides one day to attack his girlfriend in the woods and rape her. He basically runs away and decides to commit suicide. And so, and months later, she gives birth, and the baby's deformed, and it ends up growing into this mutant. That's all. I pretty much spoiled everything about it, but it's really hard to talk anything about this. It has some cool little things about it, like in a cutesy love story, like they'll put a heart in front of the camera, so it's filmed like that, like with in a heart box and everything, and just stuff like that. The music's nice, and the acting's decent for what it is, and the twist is really what makes it. It turns into something like Tetsuo, which I think was made after that, so I guess it'd be more like in terms of Cronenbergian kind of horror or anything like that, or Cronian, whatever you want to say it is. Kind of like mutating and everything like that. I would even probably predate that. I'm sure there is stuff I know. Was it Kafka? But regardless, that kind of weird body horror thing happening, and it reminds me a little bit of Eraserhead and Combat Shock at the end. But it gets really weird and gory and just over the top. Strange movie. Enjoyed it. Actually, was pretty cool. And I was glad I kind of went in blind and just didn't have any idea what it was going to be about. But yeah, I like it. It has that Super 8 charm to it, and it feels definitely like a precursor to Necromantic. Not quite as gross as Necromantic, and some of the special effects aren't particularly great, like the pregnancy or anything like that. It's just a baby doll, but hey, whatever. It's cheap and low budget. And there's a little making of on here where they talk to people about the movie. It's like 3 minutes and everything like that. So yeah. Okay, guys, I know what you're thinking, but Dave, you already covered this movie, and you even re-edited it back into that bonus video of Dive in the 85 bonus reviews. But I couldn't not rewatch this for the Dive in the 1985, and that is Ruggero Deodato's Cut and Run. That's right, yeah. So I probably will be repeating myself a bit, but what I wanted to say is, this is a jungle adventure movie from Italy, 1985, so it's late in that kind of, cycle, but it is the third in the jungle adventure movies from Ruggero Deodato, infamous director. His first being Jungle Holocaust, which is a good movie, Cannibal Holocaust, which is a classic, and then this one. Deodato would also do stuff like House on the Edge of the Park and a bunch of other crazy movies, Live Like a Cop, Die Like a Man. So I probably said all that before. There's some interesting players in this movie that I don't think I went into depth enough about in the last review. Dardano Sacchietti is credited as part of the screenplay, or writing part of the screenplay. This guy worked with Fulci in like his heyday. A lot of Fulci's biggest movies from like the late 70s to early 80s. So all that stuff that people remember, like City of the Living Dead and The Beyond and New York Ripper, had Sacchietti's name on it. So that's kind of impressive that he was involved with Deodato. On top of that, we have a score by Claudio Simonetti, who was, obviously in Goblin, and you guys will recognize the music. It's the one I used for the Dive in the 1985. Mood 616 also used it in a bunch of his videos, so it's a very memorable song, and I just can't think of a song that gets me more pumped for 1985, or gets me more pumped in general when I hear it. It's just very action-packed and action-oriented. Also, this disc, let me go through the cast here. I'm jumping all over the place, but we have Leonard Mann, who is in the Unholy Four and some other movies like that, Italian movies. He's one of the stars in here. The lady from Officer and a Gentleman is a star in here, which is kind of crazy. So we have some big names with her being Lisa Bonet, I think is her name is. Lisa Blunt. So it's kind of a big name. Kind of threw me for a loop that she was in this. Didn't really recognize her at first. Willie Ames, who was more of a child actor, so he's really not one that stood out to me. Karen Black, her second movie of 85 that I've covered. I've also covered Eternal Evil. She has a decent-sized role in here. Richard Bright, which is really weird to me that Richard Bright is in this movie, because he was in a couple Peckinpah movies. He was in Against All Odds, which is a really good movie with Robert Ryan. And Richard Bright's kind of a strange actor. Like I said, he was in a couple Peckinpah movies, The Getaway, and he's credited in Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid as bar patron, which shows me that he probably was just there having a few beers with Sam Peckinpah, which also this special features kind of backs that story up, because they said that Richard Bright would show up drunk and it pissed Deodato off, and Karen Black would have to calm Deodato down and kind of help Richard Bright through his day. I think Richard Bright comes across pretty good in this. He's kind of the father of the missing kid who runs like a news station. So I think he does a good job, and I think that he has a nice emotional role at the end with Willie Ames. So I think he did good, drunk or not. Also, another thing about Richard Bright is he actually was killed in New York City by a car. I think he was hit by a car in his like 50s or late 50s, early 60s, which kind of blows my mind. So that's kind of a tragic end to Richard Bright. And of course, we also have Michael Berryman, which is excellent. Gotta love Michael Berryman. And I thought that he got involved with this movie originally because Wes Craven was going to direct. I don't think that's the case, because Deodato mentions that he actually wanted him in the movie, but he couldn't think of his name. He wanted him because of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So eventually when he came in, or he got a picture of, he said, that's the guy, I gotta have him in here. So that's cool. He's really great in this movie. He plays kind of an enforcer to the natives. He's like one of the American enforcers. So yeah, and also we have Richard Lynch, who plays kind of a colonel type character, like from Apocalypse Now, where he's a deserter, but he wants to take back and destroy the cocaine trade and everything like that, an American kind of soldier. And he also was involved in Jonestown, so that's kind of cool. And then last, I want to mention, we got a couple more. John Striner is in here, or Striner, I always say Striner. He's in Caligula. He's the bald guy who looks very strange. He's also in Tenebrae, Dario Argento's, where he plays a crazy guy, and he plays a bad guy in a lot of movies. He's a really skinny, gaunt guy. He's pretty excellent in this as well, playing kind of a drug enforcer who basically makes all these white people, all these slave kind of people captured. Willie Ames is captured, work for him and stuff, and he has women he takes advantage of. Gabrielle Tinti is also in here, husband of Lawyer Gemscher, so he popped up in all the Black Emanuel movies. He's pretty solid in this one. He also died fairly young, so there's a lot of tragedy in this movie, which is kind of weird as far as the acting is concerned. But Gabrielle Tinti has a nice, decent-sized role in here. And last, we have, I'll never remember his name, but he plays Mark Tommaso in Cannibal Holocaust. He's a pilot in here. This is very strange. This movie was actually shot in Venezuela. It wasn't shot in the typical, kind of cannibal places, because Deodato said that he had trouble getting, that kind of place, again, because where he shot previously and all the stuff that happened with Cannibal Holocaust, he really couldn't go back there. So he basically shot in Venezuela. It looks gorgeous. I believe all the actors are speaking English here. And there's 2 cuts of the movie on here. Do not watch the censored version. I know that the uncensored version has scenes that kind of dip to standard definition, but and some of the scenes aren't dubbed in English. But the gore in here is intense, and I feel like the gore in this movie, it needs to be there, especially when it plays with the media filming it and everything like that. I feel that's like an extension of Deodato's statement on Cannibal Holocaust. But essentially the plot of this movie is there's a news crew that is trying to get a story on drug dealers in America. They end up tying it into drug dealers in, South America, and they realize that this picture they find is one of a missing son of, the video, a news producer or whatever like that. So they get sent to go to this jungle and try to figure out where this guy is and do a story about, the drug trade and everything. They stumble across Richard Lynch, who is this kind of, colonel that went AWOL, and he's trying to steal all the drugs in, Venezuela and take over the drug trade and everything like that. So it's a crazy action movie. It's really violent. There's these moments where the natives, he has a group of natives that help him too, Richard Lynch, are raping a lot of people and ripping them apart. There's a crazy trap in here, what John Striner gets captured into, which is intense, crazy gory. And there's also some real mean-spirited deaths, like I said, and it just kind of made my jaw drop. Some of the craziest gore from 85 for sure. Heads getting whacked off, lots of squibs. A few squibs. But there's, like I said, this has got a tremendous cast for what it is. It jumps back between, I think, New York and, is it New York? I would imagine it is. New York and the jungle, like also all good cannibal movies. Think Cannibal Ferox, Cannibal Holocaust. They always are jumping back and forth here and there. Even Zombie Holocaust does it. So it's got those tropes that all these jungle adventure movies do. Even though it's really not a cannibal movie, it kind of fits into that. But I think it's fast-paced, and it's got lots of cool things going on for it. It's definitely the best jungle adventure movie from 85. Especially Italian jungle adventure movie, but it does have some competition in Massacre at Dinosaur Valley and Amazonia, which I both think are worth watching as well. So, like I said, this one I think is a little underseen. Do not watch the YouTube version or the Amazon Prime version because they're the cut versions. So they'll cut to scenes and that are usually like gory or anything, and they'll have like clothed versions and stuff like that. The nudity is really unpleasant in here, to be honest. There's this poor girl who's actually dating Deodato at the time, and she's in it, and she gets taken advantage of by Gabriel Tinti and John Striner and stuff like that. He like sells her to him, basically his friend, so it's kind of, nasty. But like I said, there's some really awesome scene where the natives attack like that drug house, and they start picking people off, and the opening scene in this is intense as hell, and they use this great, like, it's got to be an airplane shot where they go above and you're seeing all the chaos, and Michael Berryman lifts some guy up and he throws him in the water. Also, bravo to Michael Berryman being a trooper. He was in The Hills Have Eyes, so he's in the desert. He has a disease where, is it alopecia? I can't say that word for some reason. Mrparka's got brain damage. But, I think it's where you don't have any sweat glands or hair on your body. So he doesn't have sweat glands. So in Hills Have Eyes, he basically had trouble, with that because it's so damn hot. And this one, too, it's extremely hot in Venezuela, and moisture is crazy. So he was jumping in the water and everything like that. And there's a lot of people that would not do that. So I really like the movie. I think it looks fantastic, especially besides the inserts. This Blu-ray is actually really nice from Ronin Flicks. It's got a bunch of features. Like I said, 2 versions. It's got a long interview with Ruggero Deodato, and it seems like an intense shoot. It's got an interview with Leonard Mann. It's got an interview with Lily Ames. And there's somebody else in here too, John Striner. So it's a loaded Blu-ray, highly recommended. It's got a nice slipcover. Really like this one. Probably one of my favorites from 85, if you guys can't tell already. So that's Cut and Run.
Civilization has introduced countless evils to this mysterious jungle, but not terror. Because here, terror was born. And here, terror will live. As long as outsiders dare to enter the savage wilderness, two reporters stumble into a troubled paradise and wind up running for their lives.
We can't just sit here, Mark. We'd be asking for it.
Because beneath the sheer beauty lies a world of utter madness. Today's headlines erupt in a timeless thriller.
Your journey ends here. Forever.
Cut and Run. It's the one story you won't see on the 6 o'clock news.
Okay, here we go. We got one from 85 called Savage Island. This is also on Amazon Prime, and Full Moon released this one. This is a 4-movie set, obviously, from Shout Factory. Quality's not particularly great on this. This one also has got to be Italian, but it's credited as Ted Nicolai directing it, and I probably think he only directed the opening and the ending stuff with Linda Blair. But this is got to be shot in the Philippines, and this is a woman in prison movie kind of deal. Think Sweet Sugar or any of those kind of movies. Okay. All right. This is a sloppy-ass movie that was basically patched together with opening and closing starring Linda Blair. So it opens up with Linda Blair kind of walking in this like really great like fancy hotel, killing somebody, going upstairs and talking to this, you know, this creepy guy about buying diamonds. And then she tells him, you know what? I know where you got those diamonds. They're blood diamonds. And I know, and I shut that island down. And I'm going to shut you down. And he's like, oh! And so it flashes back to this story where she's not there. And it's all these women being transported to this island to work and basically be slaves to dig for diamonds. There's a bunch of creepy people on there on the island, including Luciano Rossi, who's in a bunch of these Italian movies. Always as a crazy bad guy. I think I've mentioned his name 25 times in the past few years, but I can't remember any movies he's in. He's just always there. And it also has the guy they call the Italian Peter Lorre, who's in Werewolf in a Girl's Dormitory. He runs the whole kind of camp. So these people basically are running the camp. There's a bunch of creeps around there. One of which who I think is an Escape from Hellhole. And he's one of the guards, so they're always taking advantage of women. There's always naked women. There's always these fights of girls stripping nude and everything, and torture. Really sleazy, really kind of nasty. I did kind of enjoy it just because it's so audacious, kind of like in the term that the movie Hellhole's kind of like that too. So essentially there's a group of people that are going to come in and rescue them and work with the women, because the women are all plants. Like a couple of the women are plants that overtake the camp, which was definitely added in later by, you know, the opening and ending of this movie with Linda Blair. So basically Anthony Stephan comes in. He's leading this group of mercenaries, and you know, he's in stuff like what's a Django Die You Bastard, and he kind of has like soulless eyes. He looks dead inside. He's basically leading this group, and there's a big revolution. And there's a bunch of fighting and shooting and crazy things going on. And what's really weird is people get picked off by, of course, crazy things like quicksand and all sorts of things like that. That's how you die in the jungle in movies. You fall in quicksand, you know, a piranha gets you, something, the anaconda. That's how you die in these movies, okay? Very rarely do you get killed by the enemy. Sometimes you just fall on a spike or something like that. So, yeah, so basically what happens is this movie, it started getting good. There was a bunch of crazy action. And then like 25 to 45% of the characters don't have ends, and it cuts back to Linda Blair, and it's just like everything's unsettled, like the movie was incomplete. I don't know if this is like two movies patched together, and I didn't get to see the original version, but I don't know what's going on with Savage Island. It kind of falls apart, and the opening and ending with Linda Blair are just too sloppy. Just add-ons and tons of exposition. Like it's just one of those movies that like you hear people talking over things, to scenes just to get it through. Like, and then they do this and this and this. You're like, okay, because otherwise this movie would make absolutely no sense, and it barely makes sense as it is. But if you want to watch it, it's on Prime. There's a DVD 4 set, and there's a Full Moon DVD. I'm pretty sure they're all the same prints. Not particularly great, but there's a lot of nudity and a lot of sleaze if that's your thing. So yeah, Savage Island.
Women trapped on a prison island, forced into slavery, depending on sadistic guards for survival, with nothing to trade but their very souls.
Wild animal that needs to be tamed.
They were brutalized, humiliated, and tortured until they were willing to risk anything for freedom, even death. Linda Blair fought her way back from hell, and nothing was going to stand in the way of her revenge. Savage Island.
Okay, we're going to talk about the only North Korean movie I covered for 1985, and that is Pulgasari. Hopefully I said Pulgasari right, because it's kind of a word I don't know how to say. This is a North Korean kaiju movie. Yeah, really, really kind of crazy to me. I didn't know they made those movies over there in the 80s. I didn't know any other country was making those movies except Japan, really, at the time. So, okay, Pulgasari. This is a really weird one. This takes place in the time of imperialism in North Korea. And there's these small villages that are struggling with everything as it is. And of course, these soldiers come in and tell them. There's a group of bandits too that kind of wage war on the soldiers here and there. And a group of soldiers comes in and tells the blacksmith, "You're no longer going to make farming equipment for these people. We're going to take your farming equipment. We're going to turn it to weapons for us to hunt the bandits that are possibly coming out of your village." Of course, the old man says, "No, I'm not doing that." They throw him in a prison without anything, and he's dying. No one's going to help him. His family's trying to help him. The guy that works for him, the son, is interested in his daughter, so he's basically like his father-in-law and everything like that. So one day, so his daughter throws rice over for him to eat, and instead of eating the rice, he ends up making this little statue with the rice and mud called Pulgasari, which is kind of this myth that the North Korean people have, where a Pulgasari will kind of stop war within the world or something like that. So what happens is there's this little cute statue, adorable, and one day they take it home, and she's sitting there, and it's in her sewing box, and it wakes up one night, and it's the cutest thing ever. It's tiny. It starts eating all the little sewing needles in there, and we learn that Pulgasari needs metal to survive, so he starts to eat metal, and he gets bigger into like ghoulie form, and then eventually child form, and he keeps growing and growing and growing until he's the size of like a small Godzilla or something like that. And Pulgasari is basically being led by the girl whose blood fell on it, the blacksmith's daughter, so she has control of Pulgasari. So they lead into battle to fight the imperialist, and so they're always trying to figure out how to stop Pulgasari. Will they dig a hole? Will they blow him up? All sorts of things. But even after they kind of successfully fought, he doesn't stop. It's kind of a nice little morality tale that he doesn't stop, and it's a really sad kind of touching tale by the end of the movie. That maybe stick with the enemy, or maybe war's never the right answer, or maybe you start the beast, you can't stop it. There's all sorts of things going on here, but Pulgasari is really cool character. He's a really interesting character, and the movie's really interesting to me because of all that stuff. But he's adorable at first, and you love him, and I was really like, no, Pulgasari, when he's gonna get hurt and stuff like that. But the ending is really touching and kind of sad, and it does feel like its own mythology, and I kind of like that. It was very unique and different. I wish the picture quality was better. I watched it on YouTube, but the fight scenes are big and elaborate, and there's like battles and stuff like that, so it doesn't seem cheap. There's lots of fighting, and lots of major important characters die, which is kind of sad, but would recommend checking this one out. I think it's really cool. It's Pulgasari.
完成から12年、封印され続けてきた幻の傑作が今解き放たれた。映画史に刻まれるこの歴史的事件を見逃してはならない。プルガサリ、伝説の大怪獣。誰も見ることのできなかった怪獣映画の最高傑作が 35mm ニュープリント完全版でついに日本上陸。全世界の映画ファンが夢にまで見た伝説的見せ場の数々、その全貌が明らかになる時が来た。1万人以上の群衆が繰り広げる驚異のスペクタクル、壮大なスケールで展開する破壊のカタルシス。今熱い注目の中、映画史に残る怪獣映画の金字塔が世界で初めて大スクリーンに登場する。 界が待っていた伝説の怪獣映画ついに解禁。プルガサリ伝説の大怪獣。
Okay, I covered the 1984 Godzilla version, Return of Godzilla, and I really just wanted to cover the 1985 Godzilla, so the other kaiju movie of 1985, Godzilla 1985. And this is the one I remember as a kid, the American version of it, with Raymond Burr. Perry Mason, guys, Perry Mason. Also in the original Godzilla American version. So this one is shorter. This is going to be a brief review because I'm just going to kind of compare the differences a little bit. And it's been a while since I watched Return of Godzilla. So the Return of Godzilla is about an hour and 42 minutes, I think, like that. This one is like an hour and 27 minutes. So it's way quicker. It has extra scenes with Raymond Burr and Americans in there. And I really do like the kind of stuff that Raymond Burr says. It doesn't have the big moment where the Japanese kind of has their own like... what's the word I'm looking for? Where they kind of like pat themselves on the back because the Americans, the Russians, are like, you gotta nuke him, and he's like, we'll stand when we're not going to use nuclear wars. And he has this big kind of touching speech about Japan showing some love for itself, and it's not necessarily a good thing, but it's also like they're kind of so whatever, how it goes. But like I said, if you want to watch more how we actually felt about the miniatures and Godzilla himself, go back to the Return of Godzilla review. But I think this one's enjoyable. I like the element. I can't remember if Godzilla always feeds off nuclear energy to get stronger. I can't remember. But they have the Weapon X thing that fights Godzilla. I like that. I do think this one is more enjoyable for me just because I know all the previous stuff in the longer version. So when I watch like the Cliff Notes version, this one with added scenes of Raymond Burr, it just makes it a little bit more enjoyable to me. Maybe I'm closer to this one. And I think it's better, for nostalgia for me to watch here. But it's so funny at the end. Raymond Burr has this great speech at the end. Like, it's basically right on the nose. It's like Them, where like the guy looks at the camera, he's like, maybe we shouldn't meddle with scientific things. Maybe we shouldn't mess with radiation. But Raymond Burr's like, Godzilla goes back, and he gives this big speech when it's all touching and everything like that, and it's exactly what it is. Like, Godzilla is a force of nature. He is our, he's a reminder of the things that we've caused, and he is not good nor bad. He just is. He is a force of nature that we've created, and that's what I like about Godzilla in a lot of ways. And somehow you can take this giant green lizard that breathes fire, or not even fire in this one, but breathes that kind of laser blast, does all sorts of crazy things, and make him sympathetic. That's pretty cool. And I mean, like, it's like a lot of things. It's your own creation, it's your fault why this is happening to a certain extent. So it never loses that kind of element to it. Like I said, also there is the thing in here. I'm missing out. I'm losing it. I think I just lost it. But I do enjoy the movie. I do like the movie. I would recommend checking it out if you've never seen Godzilla in 1985. There is some differences for sure. And I was gonna say it does cross that line with the scientific stuff for me because like Godzilla has the DNA of birds, it also has bad dubbing for the Japanese people. It's like, Godzilla has the DNA of birds, so we're going to use the migratory sounds of birds to attract Godzilla somewhere else. And later, Godzilla versus Bellante, or whatever that damn plant thing is the sequel to this one. This one in 1985 are the ones I watched all the time as a kid. So, yeah, have some nostalgia and some love for it. That's Godzilla in 1985.
30 years ago, he thought it was over.
Troops, aircraft, rockets, they were all used before.
Now, your favorite fire-breathing monster is back, like you've never seen him before. The legend is reborn in the all-new Godzilla 1985, starring Raymond Burr. Godzilla 1985, rated PG.
Okay. I actually watched this one on Tubi, but this is an old tape. There is a DVD out there, and I did order the Arrow Blu-ray of DEF CON 4. That's right. I always loved this tape, to be honest. But the thing about DEF CON 4 was one that I watched as a kid, too, and I had mixed feelings about it as a kid. Like, as a kid, I wanted everything to have zombies, and I'm like, this better have zombies in it. When we had, like, an idea of cannibals, I was like, we're going to get zombies. This one starts off as an exceptionally scary nuclear war space movie, sci-fi movie, where these astronauts are in space, and they're supposed to basically basically they're up there to protect the Earth and shoot nuclear warheads if they see anything else going on. There's 3 astronauts. There's 2 guys and a woman. And the lead guy in here is kind of really weird. He's kind of fickle, and at first you really just can't stand him. He's a nervous Nelly. He's just does a lot of stupid things, and he doesn't seem like the leading type, the strong type. And that's definitely what they were going for. And the other guy up there is kind of more take charge, kind of more masculine kind of guy. And the female is actually my favorite character in the whole movie, the female astronaut up here. I think that she's the strongest, and she definitely tries to fight the best. But what happens here is the nuclear war breaks out, and something goes wrong with their ship. They end up having to crash on Earth after basically a bunch of nuclear fallout has happened. And there's some tragedy right away, but the main astronaut guy kind of runs into this guy who I can't think of the actor's name, but he's in a bunch of stuff. He's the guy in Dances with Wolves who says, "I just shit myself and there's nothing you can do about it." He basically is this kind of crazy survivalist that takes him back, and he has a woman locked in the cellar and everything like that. And he's obsessed with women, and he tells him, he tries to barter with him and says, "There's a bunch of food back at my ship, yada, yada, yada." But before they can even get to the ship, they're intercepted by a group of, I guess they would be edgelords. I don't know what they are, but they're a bunch of douchey guys that end up taking them in captive, including the woman who ends up being the leader of those edgelords' girlfriend. So it gets kind of convoluted in that aspect where they're like, "Well, we shot your ship down with like technology or whatever," and that's kind of nonsensical. Like in the beginning, it starts off really good and really scary and really effective, but after a while, it starts to get your typical kind of Mad Max ripoff. The longer it goes on, the less I like it, but I liked it so much at the beginning. By the end of it, I still kind of enjoy the movie. So it gets kind of crazy. It turns into kind of an action set piece, and the lead character has to come around, and he ends up being a decent enough character that I liked him. So the female astronaut's still the strongest character in the movie, and I really like, what she does and what her end is. I was like, at least she tried something. They didn't kill the character off completely ridiculous. But there's a lot of douchey characters in here, but I also really like the crazy survivalist. I think he does an exceptional job. He's really creepy, and overall, it's a decent post-apocalyptic movie. Not too bad at all. The one thing I want to mention here, which I think is kind of crazy, is how busy New World Pictures was at this time. Godzilla 1985 was a New World Pictures. DEFCON 4 was a New World Pictures. So basically, I want to name all the movies that were released from New World Pictures in 1985, Roger Corman's company. So we have Tough Turf. These aren't all horror movies, but we have Tough Turf, Avenging Angel, The Annihilators, The Highest Honor, Lust in the Dust, that's the Paul Bartel movie, Certain Fury, which is a really cool movie, DEFCON 4, Fraternity Vacation, Girls Just Want to Have Fun, Out of Control, which is an alright movie itself, The Stuff, which is a classic I've covered, Godzilla 1985, The Boys Next Door, which is an excellent movie I covered for 1985, Transylvania 65000, which is a kind of a fun movie, Making Contact, and House, which came out in 86, but technically we count it as 85. So that is like 16 movies, a lot of which are the horror movies of this year that I've covered, or horror-adjacent movies. So that's really crazy how busy New World Pictures was in 1985. And I think there was a new regime change over from 84 to 85 or something like that. So pretty crazy. Very, very busy. Maybe Corman wasn't involved at that point, but we got some cool movies out of it, especially Boys Next Door, The Stuff, House, Godzilla 85. So we got some good stuff out of, New World in 85. So, and it kind of makes me bring up points. It's like, we had Empire at the time and New World cranking stuff out. I know we have like Spectrovision and A24, but where are our cheapy ones like Canon and Empire and New World? Like a lot of those movies are some of my favorite movies to watch growing up. So I feel bad that, I guess the audience doesn't have those movies. They do have a lot of cheaper stuff around, but not quite the same flair.
The Nemesis, a nuclear weapon space platform designed to protect America.
Roger, on my way.
It is 22,000 miles over the Earth when World War III explodes.
Can't walk.
I don't believe it.
DEFCON 2.
I have solid object alert.
All right, look, it's happening, right?
It's Jordan, it's happening.
All right, then launch, Walker.
You're all getting blown away! We'll launch when we get War 1.
Walker, fight!
do it.
The Star Wars technology of the future becomes the reality of today. Defense Condition 4. For 3 astronauts, the mission that began in space will have its ultimate destiny on Earth. What they will find is unthinkable.
Hey! They got hold of my hand! Hey, Walker!
What finds them is far worse. DEFCON 4. The final defense.
Okay, another one from 1985 is a TV movie, and it is the 1985 Bad Seed remake. And I gave this a lower review than I should have, because when I watched it, I was like, that was very enjoyable, much better than I expected. The original is a bona fide classic to me, and I always thought Patty, Patty Duke in here? What's her name? Patty McCormick. There we go. Patty Duke's somebody else. Jeez Louise. Patty McCormick, who kind of reprised her role in Mommy later on, but she was tremendous in that as the little girl actress. And I remember the Bad Seed having quite an impact on me when I watched it. So the remake, I was like, okay, it's a TV remake. How much better can it be? So I start watching it, and I'm like, this is pretty close. And I guess it follows the book or the play a little bit closer. I think there's a play or book. And the ending of the TV one is closer to what actually happened. And it's actually kind of a darker ending, if you ask me, in a lot of ways. So yeah. Okay, the Bad Seed. What we have here is a little girl who's just bad. And it has this huge argument over nature versus nurture and everything like that. So we have a single mother who recently lost her husband. And she's moved to this kind of apartment. Everybody loves her daughter. They love her. They adore her. You know, she has like her dad loves her. Her husband's sister loves her. The neighbors love her. Everybody loves her, except kind of the dim-witted kind of handyman that works at the apartment complex, played by David Carradine in a great role. Leroy is his name. So everybody loves her, but you can tell that the mother knows something is off. And there's something deep embedded in her subconscious and deep down in there. So basically what we have is through some series and everything, you realize that she is evil. She's no good, and she starts to kind of set these situations up where people will die. And there's a great reveal in here where you find out she is evil about some kid who tragically drowned and lost his kind of best penmanship badge or something like that. And that reveal has always been great and very powerful. The acting is tremendous. The one thing that I do miss of the original, is it Shelley Winters in the original, or is it somebody else who, I might not, don't quote me, it's been a while since I watched that, but the performance of the mother who lost her son is one of the strongest performances I remember watching in the original Bad Seed. I remember like tearing up. Here it's also a very strong performance, but I feel like it is very much the same thing. I think David Carradine playing kind of the drunk Leroy is actually really good and really creepy, and the back and forth that he has with the little girl is good. The little girl's really strong in here. It's actually well acted. It's much better than a TV movie nowadays would be, and I do not think it's that horrible. I know a lot of people are like, yes, it's bad. I mean, it is a remake. It is a pretty much a scene-for-scene remake of the original. Not as good in a lot of aspects, but it's not that horrible, and the ending keeps more intact the original story, so you got to give it some props for that. I did enjoy it. I think it's very dark. I think it's very dark for a TV movie. I think the story is twisted, and I like that they kind of have the one guy who's kind of involved, knows a lot about true crime, and he starts to talk about it quite a bit, and the way that the mother kind of picks at him and acts like she's going to write a book, but she's really kind of investigating her own daughter. So I do like that, but he did make a mistake. He called Charles Starkweather a serial killer. He's more of a mass murderer, I think, or a spree killer. So, whatever though, whatever. But maybe I'm wrong. So that's kind of interesting in point. So I do like true crime at the same time, and I do like that psychological character study of what makes somebody, be a monster, and that's in here for sure. And there is a reveal that's really good. So I really like this movie. I don't love it. It's not as good as the original, of course. And maybe some people would say, why like this? It's just like the Psycho remake, which I don't remember liking at all. But still, I do think that this one has a certain charm to it. Maybe because it's kind of low-key and not so, in your face. But I like it. It's the Bad Seed 1985 TV remake.
boy. If I wanted a statue out here, I'd have gotten one of those cast iron jockeys.
Yeah?
You've been standing in that same spot since I left for the gym. Look what you've done here. You've broken off some of my chrysanthemums.
Oh, no, Miss Breedlove, ma'am. That wasn't me. That was that ugly little black and white dog down the street. I shoot him away real good, though.
Where are you going, Emery?
Post office, back for lunch.
Naturally.
Developing any new muscles at the gym today?
You'll be the first to know.
Certainly hope so.
Rachel, we've got a visitor.
Ah, there's my girl, my girl, my girl.
I didn't know you were coming.
Well, as a matter of fact, sweetheart, I just dropped by to say goodbye.
Grandpa's going off on another lecture tour. Can I come with you?
No, you'd be bored to tears.
No, I wouldn't.
Yes, you would. Even your grandmother, rest her soul, used to say God made me a writer and not a talker.
Do they pay you when you lecture people?
Of course they do. Your grandfather's one of the best political analysts in the country.
Yes, trying to make sense out of total lunacy. Anyway, the important thing is, what do you want me to bring you back as a present?
Oh, Daddy, you don't have to do that every time.
Always bring her a present, don't I, sweetheart?
Well, look who's little Miss Perky all of a sudden.
Hmm? What do you mean?
Well, she's been moping around here since yesterday. She wanted to win the penmanship medal at school, but she didn't.
Oh.
It's the only medal they give out.
Okay, we got another SOV for you. This is an anthology SOV movie, and yeah, this is directed by the legendary independent director Tim Ritter. This is Twisted Illusions. I have 3 versions of this, actually. Here is the remastered version made in 2004. That's the longer version of Twisted Illusions. Here is the Twisted Illusions kind of DVD tape set, which has 1 and 2 mixed, which 2 came out in 2004, I think. And then here is the original VHS tape of Twisted Illusions, still sealed. Yeah, that's crazy, right? One of the original tapes. So here we go. Twisted Illusions has, I think, 7 or 9 stories in there. Let's see if I can remember all of them. You got to remember, this is a 70-minute movie with a bunch of short stories in here. It's SOV. If you guys know Tim Ritter, he actually started his career making a short movie called Day of the Reaper, Super 8, I think it was, with no sound or anything. So yeah, and then he made this one was the second one. There was a short in here called Truth or Dare, which he got to make into a feature-length movie, which kind of had some notoriety. He went on to do Killing Spree, and after that, he made a bunch more SOV movies. Killing Spree and Truth or Dare were actually shot on film, as well as Day of the Reaper. This one is an SOV movie. Okay, like I said, there's like 7 or 9 stories. Let's see if I can remember all of them in here. The major story in here is Truth or Dare. That stars Joel D. Wynkoop, kind of a legendary actor. I love Joel D. Wynkoop, legendary B-movie actor for sure. And he's tremendous in this one. This is basically a simple story about a man who divorces his wife, and he loses his mind. He starts to crack mentally. He picks up a hitchhiker, and they start to play Truth or Dare in the woods when they're camping, and it gets more violent and more explicit, and you realize that there's definitely a psychological break in here. This is the strongest short of the bunch, and there's music cues that I really love and almost turn haunting, and I like this. I think it's a very good short. There's some other kind of comedy shorts in here. The one where Joel D. and Tim Ritter are playing these characters where they're going to meet a famous director. They sneak into his hospital room to talk to him, our producer, and the gag is he's dead. And it's very funny because Joel D's just off the cuff. You could tell he's like, Mr. Maxwell, Mr. Maxwell. They're both very funny, and it's very comical. There's one about Mind the Stairs. The version I watched had 2 versions of it, but this is basically kind of making a joke about why try to be healthy, why try to worry about it too much. You're going to die anyways. There's one about a cheapskate who steals free cable. Very funny, Capricorn Network. where he is this, it's just a joke basically about stealing cable, and he's just super cheap and very annoying. There's one about a lost VHS tape that somebody finds that brings a killer into the world. One about a mistreated wife who goes completely mad and uses items that she's supposed to clean with as a violent weapon. I think I've hit most of them. Like I said, there's so many of them in here. There's a bad chemical one, of course. So it's basically an anthology. It's pretty fast paced. There's only, like I said, it goes pretty quick in here. There's 7. So, yeah, if this sounds like it's up your alley, it does have a certain charm. It is dirt cheap. There's a minimal coverage, but Joel D shines, as he always does. And if you want to see some of Tim Ritter's earlier stuff, then I would recommend checking this out. Tim Ritter was like 17, 18 years old when he made this, so what's that tell you? Yeah, it's kind of like a do-it-yourself. And this is also a crazy time. We have 85 here. Like I said, we have so many people making movies. Polonia Brothers made one too, Church of the Damned. Tim Ritter in 85. We have SOV movies like Blood Cult, the big ones in 85, The Ripper. Then we have like big dogs like Romero. Gordon's just starting. Romero's still making movies. Craven's making a TV movie. Hooper's still making a big one. We have so much stuff going on in 85. It's one of the pinnacle years of horror movies and stuff like that. And definitely in a weird spot too in the mid 80s with the VHS boom and all sorts of stuff going on. So very interesting time for horror movies. And Tim Ritter fits right into that with an SOV anthology, Twisted Illusions, which, like I said, had a sequel later on. And had a bunch of familiar faces. Well, a couple of familiar faces, and Joel D. Wynkoop and Tim Ritter in there actually starring themselves. So, yeah.
It's just a long, dumb story.
Hey, I got an idea.
Yeah?
Yeah, let's play Truth or Dare.
Huh?
Truth or Dare.
Truth or Dare?
I dare you to poke your eye out with these pliers right here, okay? Rip it out. No, I just... Oh! No! Oh, my God!
Okay, this next one here is a dirt cheap movie. This one's from Olive Pictures. This is Victims, and I couldn't watch my Blu-ray; it would not work, so I actually had to find it streaming somewhere on YouTube. Actually, it looked like crap. The Blu-ray was defective, so check your Blu-rays, make sure yours isn't. Victims is a pretty short slasher movie. It opens up with a guy going completely bonkers in kind of a Norman Bates kind of mom outfit, running around stabbing women. A couple of them are nude, just hacking and slashing. He gets arrested and put into a mental facility, and then I think he's released. Is that what I'm supposed to understand? I don't know. Him and this other guy, I think it's him, I don't even know what's going on, but him and this other guy rob a bank. They're on a run from it, and meanwhile we have these 4 girls who are going to go on vacation in the desert and camp. And at first the guy's like, you can't do that, that's dangerous for women. And it's just like, I don't know why anybody would want to go in the desert unless you're like a survivalist in camp. It just does not seem fun regardless. But honestly, so they go in the desert. Of course they run into the creeps, and these creeps are legitimately the most generic rapist of all time. Like, when you make a joke about like scummy rapist idiots and stuff, and you're like, she was asking for it, you see what she was wearing? They actually say this. Like, I was like, are we doing this really? Like, these guys are this stereotypical where they're like, you were asking for it, walking around in your bikinis. And this is one of these movies where almost every guy's a pervert, is ridiculous. The girls fight back though, at least. They're semi-tough, and they're kind of fairly established. It's a lot of unpleasant nudity where they're like strip nude, and the girls have to take off their clothes, and it's like in a burning desert, and they all have like these tan lines and everything because it's so damn hot, and they're probably all sunburned, but they're just like holding themselves crying, and the guys are standing over there drooling. So it's a pretty unpleasant movie. And of course the girls get revenge and fight back. That's pretty much the basis of it. There's this weird kind of folky song that's in there that I kind of like, that feels like a carryover from the 70s. That's kind of weird like that. A lot of these movies do feel like carryover from the 70s horror movies, exploitation kind of thing, and this one definitely feels like that. The movie would be a little bit better if they didn't have the very lame ending with the cops. There's an ending with the cops, and it's only like minimal coverage again of a shot of them, and the cops like, you guys were doing all this. It's just like, oh, we're having the dumb cop blame them because they're pretty girls and they're young. Oh, we got the generation divide. That does not date it very well. I wish that I could watch the Blu-ray. I'm getting a replacement soon, so hopefully the quality's better. I think this one was shot on 16 millimeter, and blown up to 35. I don't know, but it didn't look very good in the print I saw was a VHS. So I don't know. Sometimes Slasher Video can't find elements, so they'll release like videotape masters on Blu-ray. So I have no idea what the Victims Blu-ray looked like because mine wouldn't even turn on. It was that bad. It had like an air bubble right in the middle of the disc, right when I opened it. So yeah, the movie itself is not really that great. You could pass on this one probably, but it is very sleazy. And the bad guys are really gross, and there's this really weird flashback in Vietnam too. So I don't know. There's some gore and some blood, but super sleazy, fairly gross. Do like that the women. It's one of those things where the women kick ass in a lot of ways. But at the same time, they're super exploited. But that's an exploitation movie. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That's Victims.
We told you what happened.
Until he's able to talk and tell his side of the story, he ever does. All I got's your word for it that he raped you.
Physical examination will prove that we're telling you the truth.
All that will prove that you had intercourse with him. Right now, I got a man out of his mind with a bullet hole through his leg. For all I know, he may have been the victim. You see?
Oh, we're telling the truth.
Look, I'll lay it out for you. It'll go a heck of a lot easier for all of you if you tell me what you did with the money.
What money?
The money from the gas station holder.
We don't know anything about a holdup. What are you trying to say to us?
Ladies, a man was shot in that holdup, and that's damn serious enough. But if that attendant should die, you're going to find yourself in more trouble than you ever dreamed of.
So help me God, we don't know anything about any gas station holdup. Oh, God.
All right. Have it your own way. I just don't understand you kids nowadays. Seems you're always getting yourselves into trouble.
Okay, I'm going to be pretty quick with this one. This one is 1985's Bloodstream. This is a British horror movie. I don't know. This is by a guy named Michael Murphy. He did a bunch of other stuff later on. Some of the tapes I have, and Invitation to Hell I have on DVD and stuff like that. So I had never seen his movies. He's been making movies for a very long time apparently, and this one is super low budget called Bloodstream. This is bad. This might be the worst of the year. So essentially what we have here is this independent director. He makes this movie called Bloodstream. The producer is an asshole. He screws him over the tape, says, your movie's horrible, we're getting rid of it, you'll never work in this town again, yada, yada, etc., etc. He's heartbroken. The filmmaker's heartbroken. But the producer ends up, he's like, we're going to sell this to a bunch of people anyways. I just wanted the money. A secretary overhears, doesn't like it, goes to the director, tells him that. The director decides to get revenge. So the director, instead of, suing him or just killing them flat out, he decides to go all Last House on Dead End Street with it and make a movie out of it to get revenge. So it's kind of like a semi-remake of Last House on Dead End Street or something like that, but just not nearly as good. So essentially what he does is he gets a video camera, he puts a skull mask on, and he starts filming all their murders for no apparent reason. The secretary helps him plan all these out. But what's really weird about the movie is they introduce characters like they have their pictures, like they're like acting for portfolio pictures, and one's an actor and an actress, a couple actors, and I'm like, I don't remember these characters in the movie at all. We're halfway through the movie, and all of a sudden these are on his hit list. It's like, oh, I didn't like these actors. Yeah, I'm gonna kill them. So I'm like, whatever. So he picks a bunch of them off, and it's just basically a movie of him picking off these people, and at the very end, there's some turmoil within him and the secretary. But what makes this movie even more annoying is the fact that half of the runtime is this director watching other movies that this company produced. And at first I was like, is this all Bloodstream for like the first half of it? Then I realized like, oh, these are other movies the producer produced or put out that are just kind of bad movies. Like there's a zombie one. They run the gauntlet. Exorcism movies, zombie movies, slasher movies, biker, post-apocalyptic movies. They're all there. And I'm thinking, I'd rather be watching those than this movie. And I'm wondering, and they look bad too. They look cheap and fun though, at least. I'm wondering if those are movies this director made previously. I don't know. Some of them kind of incorporate the actual movie itself and the short, so I don't know if they were made distinctly for this or shorts or whatever. But yeah, half the movie is a guy watching movies. So, and they don't really seem like they tie in anything. It just seems like padding the runtime. Not very good, not very well acted, just kind of very boring and stupid. And although it's not the most boring movie of '85, it's definitely one of the takes for worst. I know this director did a bunch more movies, and I'm willing to try out his other stuff. Like I said, I have a few of them here. I bought them. So Bloodstream is on YouTube. I don't know if it's considered it's on a bonus feature on any of those other ones. It may be. I don't know. That I have already, but it is dirt cheap, and it looks like it has film grain on it, but it's so cheap. I don't know what it was shot on. I have no idea, but yeah, it's just not good.
It doesn't work. It's rubbish. Yeah, better luck next time. There won't be a next time. You had a golden opportunity and you blew it. You'll never work for me again. I'll make sure of that. If I were you, I'd get a proper job. You're finished in the film industry. We gotta get to the generator before they do.
But they're everywhere!
Make a run for it.
No, I can't leave you!
Don't run.
Okay, guys, the next one is from '85, of course, and it is Bits and Pieces. Another cheapie. This one is kind of a psychomaniac, killer of dolls story, where you have this guy who has obvious mommy issues, and he talks to this mannequin with his red hair, and the mannequin, I guess, tells him to kill women. So he goes out and he picks up women that are usually frequenting a male strip joint, and he picks them up in the parking lot. He hacks and slashes them, throws their bits and pieces in trash bins. A cop catches on, and one of the girls he's after that was a friend of one of the victims, so he's kind of tracing them, and the cop starts to date that girl, so that's all intertwined. Okay. There's not much more to this story, to be honest. Like I said, it's definitely the psycho story, so there'll be these weird elements of him talking to, like, the mannequin with the wig on it, and also, like I said, feels like a maniac and killer of dolls, which also have that weird kind of mannequin kind of, mommy issue thing going on. It's definitely cashed in on those. If I remember, there's not particularly that much gore, but when they actually show, like, the bits and pieces in the dumpster, they're kind of nasty. And like, for at times, like, the cop and the woman have, like, these long, relationship moments and everything like that. It ends on a darker note than I expected, to be honest. But I don't have much to say about this one. It's very bland. He has flashbacks with his mother, where you see what the kind of stuff she did to him, and it's very carbon copy. Like, oh, we made him dress up like a woman. We made him do all that kind of thing. And the killer to me reminds me of kind of like a cheap Crispin Glover. If that makes any sense. He reminds me of a cheap Crispin Glover. He ties up the women, kind of strips them nude, and cuts them to pieces. That's what you get. Very, very run-of-the-mill psycho slasher ripoff. The picture quality is not particularly great. Again, couldn't really find anywhere to watch it except YouTube. Nowhere to buy it or anything like that. But like I said, I wish I had more to say about this, but I'm really drawing a blank when it comes to this one. Like you said, you watch so many movies and some of them bleed together. I just remember this being relatively cheap, and there's a decent moment here. I will give it some props over Victims, where at the end of Victims they have a really shitty cop that's just so annoying. The cop in this one, he starts off as an asshole at one point, but he's like, "I'm sorry, ma'am, just give me a break," and you're like, you know what? Thank you for being a realistic cop for once, or a realistic character, not just like, at least having some sort of dimension to him, not just a one-dimensional character. They kind of add that element to it. So I kind of enjoy that bit. And like a lot of it is police procedural, where a homeless woman sees the body and they go to her and she's like, "I couldn't see everything." And they find vanity plates, track the plates. "Oh no, it didn't lead to this." And it kind of plays kind of like a police procedural, like the movie later down this video called Night Killer, but not nearly as effective, but bits and pieces. I would probably skip this one too.
Mommy? Mommy? Not your You're not my mommy. Not yet, anyway.
Well, is she ready?
Yes, Mommy. We're almost ready.
She's here, and she didn't screw up.
Now, and she can't hurt us.
Okay, this next one is a Hong Kong movie from 1985, and this is Nightcrawler. Yeah, this is a pretty interesting movie, to be honest. It starts off, like, and I've seen reviews too, and I was like, that's dead on correct. It starts off like a Dario Argento kind of crazy movie. It's giallo, it's thriller, it's police procedural, and it's a Christmas movie. Yeah, it's a Christmas movie. This one's kind of a gem, So basically it opens up with this really crazy murder where a child witnesses it. That's very Dario Argento. Think of all the movies that do that. Doesn't Sleepless do that? Doesn't Phantom or Sleepless does it for sure. And I want to say he didn't direct it, but Wax Mask, he was involved with it, has that moment too. So many of those movies like that have that witness of this elaborate kind of crazy murder of a woman fighting for her life and a child watching it, and like these weird kind of moments. She's holding her doll and everything. So that really felt like that. And then the killer runs away. We don't see who it is. Some of the people see it. We have these Christmas carolers going around at that time. That whole scene is great and effective. And a man with one eye witnesses part of it, so it has all these things going on. And I'll add that man with one eye, along with some of the other characters like the coroner, are like these goofy kind of characters that you would see in a Dario Argento flick, like kind of the bird with the crystal plumage with the guy who eats the cats, or like the really flamboyant kind of detective in Is It Four Flies on Grey Velvet? So again, we have these kind of over-the-top kind of weird characters that are sprinkled in this relatively serious kind of messed up giallo. So these two cops are put on the case. One is kind of doesn't follow it by the books, kind of a dirty, hairy kind of type. His introduction is him beating up a bunch of punks in like a soup shop that are giving these a couple a hard time. He whoops the crap out of them. Really effective scene. He uses a baton, which is really awesome. And the other cop is kind of a married man, has a family life, never had time for a kid. So they basically pawn this kid who's now gone. The little girl's gone mute. She's adorable too. You feel bad for her the entire movie. She's just always crying. She's gone mute. So they pawn the kid off on him and say, "Can you take care of this? She has no family members in the area, and we would like her to be around you for protection and possible witness." So he's taking care of this girl and with his wife, and it's Christmas time and everything, and the other cop and him are trying to figure out this case. So again, we have that element, you know, like never had time for a kid, kind of get an adopted kid. So they start to dig deeper and they start to look into, she was a model, so they start to look into the modeling business, which reminds me of another movie that came out this year from Italy called Model Killer, is it, or something like that? I can't think. Nothing Underneath, which is another Italian giallo. It fits a lot with that one, with the model fashion industry, which is another big giallo trope. Think strip nude for your killer. So again, they start to dig into this model fashion agency, and somebody gets killed from that in a very elaborate way, and they kind of tie it down. And at one point, one of the characters is actually kidnapped by the killer, and you learn the killer's psychology is all messed up, feels very much again like a giallo, and they have another person with him who's nuts. So they start to torture this person. There's some twists and turns, and eventually it turns into some action moments and some really cool things. There's some funny moments, like I said, and there's a real cruel joke at the end of this movie that almost the whole movie I thought it was ending that way. I was like, you can't do this. You can't pull a Red to Kill, which is another Hong Kong movie, which just broke my heart. I was like, how could you be that mean? God damn it. But they actually pull a trick on you, which actually makes it a little cheesy. But at the end, I still enjoyed the movie. It didn't lose me. It did lose a little bit of cred, though. But I really like this one. I thought it has a great look to it, too. They all look kind of like this from the 85 Asian movies in general, have that certain look to them. I would feel like that blue tint, like rainy kind of Blade Runner almost to me. They always kind of have that look. I enjoyed the hell out of this movie, actually. I thought it was really cool, and I enjoyed all the characters and the bickering, and the bad guys were scary, and they had some cool psychological aspects about them. The murders were cool, and it was rare that I seen a Hong Kong giallo Christmas movie. So a cool one from 85 that I never would have watched if I wouldn't have done this dive in 85. But I really wish some of these Hong Kong movies would get releases, but I wouldn't hold my breath on that, unfortunately. I know that Arrow is putting some of them out, and Unearth has Untold Story coming out, but there's so many cool Hong Kong movies, even if they, not even the extreme ones. Like this one isn't really that extreme, but Night Killer, I like it. I think it's cool. And there's just tons of these action and exploitation and thriller movies that need a release. Okay, we have another one from 85. I've covered this one years back, and this is the Japanese movie Gakidama. This is a little creature movie. This is a crazy movie. It only runs at 55 minutes, Japanese movie. And like I said, the previous movie has a similar look to that, like that blue kind of tint. What we have here is this reporter who wants to take a picture of a ghost. He hears in this mountainous area that ghosts often appear. So him and his photographer go up there. They see a strange man on the subway. They're like, I wonder who that guy is. He has a weird face mask on. They end up going to the woods, and they see these beautiful, I guess they're, what do they call those, wisp, they're in Cemetery Man too, like those floating glowing things, and one of the wisp lands on the journalist's shoulder, turns into a little kind of like caterpillar thing, kind of reminds me of something like on a blue monkey, crawls in his ear, and he gets a voracious appetite, think Slither, and he can't stop eating and eating, and his wife's like, geez Louise. And also kind of funny that his wife mentions in this movie, I wish we had a kid, and that kind of ties into the last movie, Night Killer, where she was like, we wanted a kid and everything like that. And this is very not shoehorned in, but very obvious, kind of foreshadowing what's going to happen in Gakidama. So basically what happens is he eats and eats and eats, and at night, he falls asleep, and he's got a big old belly. He pukes up this little ghoul. I think it's a Gakidama is hungry ghoul or little ghoul. So it's this crazy little gremlin ghoul, and he runs off. That guy with the weird mask shows up and kidnaps him, and runs off loses the ghoul in the woods. So basically what happens is the journalist is still, he's kind of lost his mind a little bit. I mean, the journalist. And the guy with the face mask comes to him and has a Gakidama, and he says, I know what you're feeling. You want to eat it, right? I had the same desire. And he shows, and he has these big scars in his mouth from puking the thing up. And he says, after you have the Gakidama in your body, you must eat it. So he becomes obsessed. They eat this Gakidama together, and he learns that his friend, the photographer, went back to the mountains by himself, and he also has got the Gakidama in him. So he starts to kind of spy on him, and he's going to get the Gakidama for himself and eat it. And meanwhile, the Gakidama that escaped in the woods attacks the wife by herself in their giant house with this elaborate fish tank. And basically shenanigans ensue, kind of like Gremlins like shenanigans, where she's fighting this Gakidama. And that's pretty much the entire movie here. It does have a weird mythology and crazy mythology and stuff that you would never hear about people being kind of obsessed with it after something like that happens to them. It's entertaining. It's really weird. I love the little creature. He's insane, and the fights with the creature and the woman are great. The fish tank scene is awesome. The house looks really good too, but the creature makes the movie, and he's really tremendous. And it's a weird, bizarre movie that I would recommend checking out. I liked it. It's short, and there's not much to say about it besides what I already did. Just kind of divulged the plot, and I do like how it looks. It does have some point of view creature stuff. It has everything you could kind of want in this kind of movie. It's really weird, Japanese movie with weird kind of mysticism and mythology that I enjoy. Gakidama. Okay, another one I rewatched for 85. I could not rewatch it. It is Attack of the Beast Creatures. This is a bootleg. I'm going to apologize. I did not have the VHS, although I wish I did because I'm sure it's worth money. Okay, this movie opens up. It's like 1920. Somewhere in the North Atlantic, May 1920, and a group of like 8 or 9 people wash ashore. Their ship just crashed. We have an injury. There's an asshole guy bickering like, I hate, just leave that guy. He's such an annoying asshole. And these people are stranded on the boat. Some of them seem like they're rather high class. Stranded on this island. It's rocky at first, and they don't really know what to do. They leave the injured man and say, we'll come back for him. We're going to go into the island and see what's going on. And this is kind of when the crazy things start to ensue. It's also called Hell Island, I believe, and that fits the title as well. But yeah, what happens is they kind of have the feeling that something's watching them. And within the first like 20 minutes, there's a lot of character development. You kind of understand who these characters are. And throughout the entire movie, they develop the characters. You know, you kind of know who all these people are. I ended up really liking the character Phil. Phil is like the heavy guy. He kind of always is around. Every time something happens, they're like, Phil, take care of the women. And he kind of takes care of the women. And he hates the rich guy who's constantly complaining. He's like, I love Phil. And I also really love the rich old woman who's always very positive around everybody. She's like, oh, we'll be great. We'll do fine. Those two I just had like a connection to that I really liked. So basically it turns into a survival kind of jungle movie, which I absolutely love. This jungle is not right. You know, it doesn't feel like it. They said that this really feels like it's in the Pacific, even though they're in the Atlantic. It's way more tropical than it should be. So they're struggling to survive and find food. And there's a really crazy moment with the water that I don't want to spoil, but I love that there's something with the water that's really cool. And when that scene happens, my jaw always drops when I watch it. I love the music too. It's just really weird and creepy and offbeat. I dig the hell out of the music. But what happens is they are eventually attacked by these little tiki men. And they're just these little things that are screaming and yelling, and the music comes on, and they just constantly attack them and bite at them and pick them off one at a time. And when the people actually die, for the most part, a lot of them are established characters. And a lot of the dialogue is kind of cheesy and funny, and the acting's not amazing. And none of these people really did anything else. The director is Mike Stanley, and it's not the other Mike Stanley that did Dead is Dead, which, you know, so this is pretty much, I think, all these people ever did. What strikes me as weird is the plot is so goofy and so weird that these little tiki men are ripping them apart, and the whole cast is like middle-aged. So I'm like, how did you convince all these middle-aged people to be in such a wild and weird movie, to be honest? And I like the movie because it's ridiculous, but it feels earnest. Like, I don't feel the people like, isn't this stupid? They're playing it straight. You can't make a ridiculous movie and laugh at yourself and say, I love wasting my time and your time. These people I feel like they're playing in earnest. And it's already ridiculous. It's going to come across ridiculous. You might as well try your best. And I feel like they did. I know it's really silly and stupid to a lot of people, but to me, I enjoy the hell out of it. I like little creatures. The creatures make me laugh. They're terrifying, and they make me laugh. And this whole movie has this weird sense of nightmare logic and insanity that I don't even know how to put it. It's just a weird ass movie, and it's just crazy and batshit. And I like it a lot. Okay, rewatching, I liked it even more. I wish this would get a Blu-ray release. I probably repeated myself a lot what I said last time, but that's Attack of the Beast Creatures. A lot of fun, a lot of weirdness, a lot of nightmare logic, but just and the characters, of course, they get picked off by things like falling on spikes. But hey, why not?
Alive, oh, crying cockles and mussels, alive.
Mrs. Gordon! was gonna say something. No! Is she? Yeah. No. We've got to move out of here as fast as we can. We're not taking any more chances. Every time we stop, somebody gets killed, injured. We're gonna leave.
Hammer time!
For all who are willing to pay the price, we invite you to go through the mirror of life.
Come if you dare.
Hey guys, what's up? It is week 49 of Hammer Time.
Quietly.
Yes, because obviously I'll throw a hissy fit. And we're here to do Captain Kronos, the vampire hunter. Is it Captain Kronos Vampire Hunter? I think it is.
Or Killer.
It's Hunter.
Okay.
It's got to be Hunter.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is week 49, so we only got 3 more movies after this, and then we start a new season. Yeah, so this is pretty late in the Hammer game. 73, I think, or is it 74, actually? I'm not 100%, because sometimes the dates are a little messed up on these with the books and everything. So, okay, the lead in here, I didn't really see him in anything else. His name's like I can't think of his name 100%. In fact, the only real recognizable person for me that I would know right off the cuff by like seeing them in other movies is Caroline Munro, who was in Maniac and a slew of other things, the Fives movies. So, yeah.
It has the one guy from the Peter Pan story.
Oh, yeah. The guy from Fear of the Night and Demons of the Mind. He also is in Captain Kronos, and he plays pretty much a similar character. He was like a man-child aristocrat kind of deal. That's pretty much what he plays. He's pretty good at it.
Right.
So, all right, the plot of this one is pretty cool. We have a vampire hunter and Captain Kronos, and he seems to come from some sort of almost like royal blood or rich blood, aristocratic too, I would say.
Right.
So him and his hunchback helper kind of travel the countryside and show up where they're needed to fight vampires. In this one, there's different types of vampires. There's life force vampires that drain your life force and youth, and there's you assume that there's other monsters and creatures in this big old world, so there's a nice mythos. So essentially, Captain Kronos is called by his doctor friend after he suspects that there's some vampires. He shows up with his hunchback helper, and right away, he runs into some goons, and we know something's up, and this, the vampire is around.
Yeah.
I really like this one. I think it's really well made. I do think that at one point I got super tired, and I can't understand why.
There are some like really long shots in this.
Usually they're beautiful though.
I mean, they're all very beautiful. They're like the scenes in this movie, like there aren't any like dialogue, like talking scenes. Everything's very like all the dialogue's very quick.
Yeah.
Or it's a lot of action.
Well,
but there aren't any like characters don't sit and talk to each other like they do in the past films we've been watching. There's no monologues or soliloquies or nothing to that effect.
There is exposition, but a lot of it's visual exposition and storytelling, which is really great, to be honest. That's what you're kind of supposed to do. Like in the openings, we have some young girls being attacked by the kind of cloaked vampire. It's really kind of awesome that he's in the person's in the cloak. You don't really know who it is, but you suspect a couple people. They're in like this cloaked, and and like there's a part where the girl walks by like the flowers, and then like he walks by, and you're like, oh, it's this kind of like suggesting like visual metaphors and everything like that. And he walks by like these like mushrooms. I don't know. I really enjoyed how they set this up. Although I do wish that they kind of maybe had a stinger in the beginning. That would be more modern day to have him fight kind of another creature.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of mythos that they just kind of like are showing you, and not like, you don't know this character, but right away you assume that there's like 3 or 4 movies before this, and there'll be like 3 or 4 after this. Like, this is definitely like Hammer's attempt at a new series.
Yeah, I would agree, like, because these are definitely like almost pre-established characters.
Yeah. And the rules are all different for vampires.
Yeah,
like I said, they always change the rules on them.
Yeah, it's like, they even say, like, oh, there's different species of vampires, and there's one particular scene where a guy gets turned to a vampire, and they're trying to figure out what kind of vampire he is, and they're just torturing this guy. They impale him, they hang him.
Well, they're trying to figure out a way to kill him, because there's different, kind of like the Nightbreed, all kinds of different breed, all kinds of way to kill him. Fire for some, bullets for others. So they're just basically torturing him. And also this kind of reminded me of something that, another movie that, this one, because I'm doing the dive in 85, came out in 85, Mr. Vampire, how they had the weird mythos and how they were trying to like cure him of his vampirism and everything like that by putting him in sticky rice. So it was kind of wild like that. So I see like that it inspired kind of like that, Mr. Vampire, and I definitely see inspirations to the Fright Night series again with the different kind of styles of rules and vampires.
Yeah.
So I mean it's and I like that people say it's kind of like a swashbuckling like sword pirate kind of deal, because
there's definitely some sword fighting, sword play in it.
And there's also, a lot of movies, a lot of horror movies would be accused of doing this kind of thing where they introduce a character and then 2 seconds later they kill him. This one actually sets up these goons in a bar and for like a few minutes, and they're really kind of established. And the main goon you think's going to be this heavy, and he's an actor who's in a bunch of stuff, you'd recognize him, but he's really good in it, and he's just a complete asshole. He's in Theater of Blood. I think he's one of the critics that Vincent Price goes after. He might be the hero in Theater of Blood. He's in Theater of Blood, I know that, but he might be the guy with the fencing. I think he is in Theater. I think he fights Vincent Price with a sword, if I'm remembering correctly. I'll have to recheck when we watch Theater of Blood later next year. But regardless, he's like this asshole in this bar, and they establish him, and it's perfect. And then like a little bit later, he runs into Kronos. It's not like right away. Right. I mean, it's literally like 10, 15 minutes later, so you already know these characters, and they're going to run into each other. So I like that. I like his helper. I like that, instead of the hunchback guy being like the villain or the bad guy, he's actually kind of a really sympathetic good guy. Yeah. I like that too. And the hero's pretty cool. He's pretty unique. And Carolyn Monroe has never looked better.
No, she's fantastic in it.
She's great in it too. And I like that she there's a great line that she says here where she's like, I'd like to stay with you if you'll have me. And he's like, oh, I'll have you. And I was like, yeah. But I mean, they're both like, it's a pretty sexy scene, pretty sexy relationship for 1974. I think it's a 74 one. I think it's good. I think it's better, on the second watch. This wasn't the first time watch for me. So it gets better, and it felt different than the other Hammer movies.
It definitely feels different. It doesn't feel like a Hammer movie. I mean, the setting seems very Hammer-like.
But the locations are different to me. They're not the same locations we've seen.
Yeah,
they are, but they shoot them different, I guess.
Right, yeah. They're not the same. I'm sorry, the locations look new. The movie feels almost like it's pulpy, like we're talking about
comic book.
Like it should have some pre-existing property, or
like it was based off a comic line or something, or an established character.
And this is the first time I watched it, and while I'm aware of what's going on in the movie, like I had a hard time like following it, and I don't know if it's just the way that the scenes were shot, or just because the characters don't have much dialogue. Like there's scenes where we're talking to each other, but everything's just kind of like disjointed, and I'm supposed to already have some sort of pre-existing idea of what something is.
I kind of like that they just throw you in there. So many movies have to have like 45 minutes of, we know what a vampire is at this point. And there's a nice little shout out at the very end to a pre-establishing kind of, property in the Hammer thing at the very end, which I liked. Like I said, his main enemy or his main focus ends up being this like really rich family with like a sickly mother who looks really old and she doesn't go out in public, and these kind of brother and sister, and you suspect it's one of them who's the a kind of like a life force vampire, so you really don't know who. And there's like a long like family lineage and stuff, and they go in that, which is really cool. And the house looks super weird. Their house is really decorated strangely and painted strangely, like I said, almost like you said, it was like royal blue or purple, kind of like everywhere. So like I said, this one was probably a better on second viewing. There's not much complaints about it, and I also love how they realize that what will kill the vampires, this strand of vampire, is steel. And how they get their steel sword is wonderful and highly illegal and sacrilegious. I would imagine.
Absolutely. I don't want to give that scene away, just because, like, when you're watching it,
I was like, did they just? I was like, yeah, I think they did.
Yeah, they committed like 5 crimes to get this, and you're like, yeah, they're kind of garbage people.
Well, it's kind of the brilliant hero that I miss. I really miss the brilliant hero that is equal parts religious and scientific.
Right.
And they just don't have them anymore. And like they'll usually separate them a lot of times, but rarely will they connect them. Like a Van Helsing was a very good religious scientific character. Like he approached the situation analytical, but he also had faith in God. And I think that those kind of heroic types are kind of like a lost art, like the almost, I would say, like the warrior priest or something like that. They just don't exist anymore in film because either religion is always portrayed. It becomes a political statement in a movie now, which is, I don't know if it's unfortunate, it's just the way it is. But I don't see anything really political in this, except that, again, rich people are pretty bad in the Hammer movies for the most part. Occasionally you get some decent ones, like Christopher Lee in the one where he, I think it's the Gorgon, he was pretty good in that one, and stuff like, Captain Kronos seems like he comes from money at the same time. But I would give this a really hearty recommend. Unfortunately, I did order the Shout Factory one, didn't come in time. It came today, and we watched it yesterday, so that was unfortunate. I had some mail trouble. I'm surprised they're even shipping stuff still, so I guess I'm grateful for that. But we watched it on Amazon Prime, and it looks spectacular on Prime.
Yeah, it looked great.
It looked even better than just HD, so I don't know where the print is. There's a lot of good oldie movies on Amazon Prime. If you want to check them out. I know they have some other Hammer stuff, but like I said, I really liked it. Next week is Frankenstein and the Creature from Hell, the last of the Hammer Frankenstein movies, and then we're done. And it's the second to last Peter Cushing movie, I think.
Is it? And we have one more Lee still, right?
Yeah. Yeah, 2 Lees.
We have 2 Lees.
No, we have 2 Cushings and 1 Lee. Sorry,
there
is another
and
Cushing.
1 Lee.
Yeah.
I guess we're going to read the review.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, I'm going to talk a little bit about this. Jeremy, for some reason, wants to rank all 60 movies we watched in order, and I don't. I think I want to give a top 20 and a bottom 5 and keep it at 25. Mentions at the year end when we do the Hammer, because we're going to talk about some of our favorites at the end, of course, and give some rewards like Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Director, and things like that.
I don't want to rank all 60.
You said it. Like, we should rank all of them at like when we were in the middle of this, and I'm like, all right, we're not.
I was just talking.
We're going to do the top 20 and the bottom 5, probably.
No, we're going to do a top 1 and the bottom 1, because I don't remember half of these.
We'll go over it. Stop. I'm going to read from... I would give this a 7.5 out of 10. I really liked it. Pushing close to 8. So I'm going to give... I'm going to read out of... Geez, I'm not making any sense right now. But Creature Features by John Stanley. And this is Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter. He puts it at 72 here. So 3.5 out of 5. Exciting Hammer actioneer, also known as Vampire Castle and Kronos. Horst Jansen is the dedicated Kronos who embarks on Quixotic hunts, like Don Quixote, hunts for bloodsuckers with hunchback Professor Gross. Writer-director Brian Clemens creates a blend of satire and swashbuckling action with overtones of an old-fashioned serial. That's right. Exotic or erotic. It's exotic. Carolyn Monroe is Kronos' helper. Sorry. It's like, remember that in Simpsons? Ooh, erotic cakes. I'm as dumb as Homer Simpson.
Let's see. So, Terror on Tape by some bloke.
James O'Neill. It's not a bloke. Maybe he is.
Captain Kronos Vampire Hunter, he gives it 3 out of 4.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
very
this book
good.
is. He says 73.
See.
91 minutes, some people's names. Underrated Hammer vampire adventure. The Captain Jansen is a swashbuckling swordsman out to eradicate the plague of vampirism from the world. In this case, battling a monster that drains youth, not blood, from its victims. Haunting visuals like flowers wilting as a vampire passes. A good sense of humor and a fine cast, including Monroe in her best role, distinguish this from the rest of the herd, aka Kronos.
Yeah, I didn't read that one, but I like sometimes when like you read it and they back up what you say.
Yeah.
A lot of times that's nice. Or they remind you of something you forgot about. So
I would give this 3.5 out of 5. I think that watching the prior Hammer films, this is almost like a compilation of them, because we have a lot of different ideas that are presented in Hammer, like as a series as a whole. You know, Hammer isn't a continuous series, but like as a studio as a whole, they took a lot of their ideas and they put it into Captain Kronos. There's the vampire family that's revealed in the end. There's elements of like Dr. Frankenstein and the Dracula series. A lot of like the Victorian Gothic stuff that we've been watching. Like it becomes apparent in this movie, and I think that I appreciate it more having watched a lot of these earlier Hammer films.
So you're saying it's like You Gotta Hide Your Love Away by the Beatles, kind of like paying homage to the old songs and mixing them all together and kind of just spitting out something completely new?
I don't know anything about the Beatles.
That's one of the songs I really like. But yeah, anyways, I really like it. I haven't got a chance to dive into the Scream Factory release, but it has like a 70s feature. It has like a featurette on there and stuff. So yeah, I would recommend checking this one out. At least check it out on Prime, and if you love it, buy the Blu-ray. I would recommend it. I don't know if it'll make my top 20. We saw a lot of cool movies. Very rarely is there any. I never went under 2.5. I never went under 5 for any of them, and most of them are over 6. So
this won't make my top 20.
Yeah. All right.
But
well,
it's good.
Yeah.
But it won't make my top 20.
We're out of here.
All right. Bye.
In the 18th century in Central Europe, a black terror swept across the face of the land. The curse of vampirism, which had been a half-forgotten memory for hundreds of years, returned with a fury that struck unholy fear into the hearts of every man, woman, and child. One man dared to make a stand against this evil epidemic. One man dared to hurl a challenge of cold steel against the terror of the undead. He was Captain Kronos, vampire hunter.
It is commonly supposed that a vampire attacks in only one way, by biting the neck and draining the victim of blood. The girls you spoke of, they were not drained of blood, but of youth, of life itself. You see? He's been bitten on the mouth.
God's sake, I survived the vampire's bite.
But he is not the man you are.
I'm doomed. My soul a never-ending torment. Kill me! Kill me!
Her life will be yours. Yours. Her youth will pulse through your veins, my darling, replenishing, restoring. Take her.
At your service, sir. To the death. Yes, you bleed, my lord. This is God's blade. Forged for your black heart.
All right, guys, we get to the questions this week. We have Nick Mua, and as illness can screw with other senses, which of your 5 senses couldn't you possibly live without? My sight. Definitely couldn't live without my sight. What is the highest number of movies you have ever watched in a single day? That's tough. I know I've done 4. I'm sure I've done 5. It's probably been 6. When you're a kid, though, and you're staying home, sometimes you'll watch 5 or 6 movies back in the day and not even notice, I'm sure it's probably somewhere like 5 or 6. I've never done one of these all-night movie-thons or anything like that, so yeah. Actors often come from acting families. Which actor/actress do you feel is actually worthy of the family name, and which actor/actress is crap at their job despite coming from good acting stock? Ooh, that is a good question. Oh, geez, I think that if we're talking about siblings, I think that Chris and Sean Penn are both pretty good. I love Chris Penn. I think somebody like Eric Roberts is actually underrated. Families, the Arquettes, you got David. I know their family came from acting. David and Patricia Arquette. Actually, all the Arquettes are fairly solid. I don't see really a horrible link in any of that, where one was too horrible. Geez, I'm trying to think of. I really like. I can't think of his name off the top of my head for some reason, but he's great. Brendan Gleeson, I actually adore. I think he's great, and I think his son, Domhnall Gleeson, I think he's poor. I don't even think he's that bad of an actor. He just bores me. He's just one of those actors I see on the screen, and I'm like, not doing anything for me. So there's one. Brendan Gleeson's tremendous, and I don't think his son is nearly the actor he is. Then we have people like John Wayne and his son, they were fine. They never really took off like I think that they probably wanted them to. Patrick Wayne, I think it is. So, and I haven't seen that much he's in, but I never seen any of the movies where he was in where I was like, oh, he's terrible. So, I would give Domhnall Gleeson. That's the one I would say. And then we have answers. And basically I ask you some underrated YouTubers. Viper Rose. So basically sometimes these people add more than just the answer in there. And sometimes I feel like reading that as well. So I will. Viper Rose 1978. Oh, wow, you seriously seem annoyed with Jeremy on Fright Night. I totally get your point. And like you, I am at work every day. It's a crazy time and totally with you on hazard pay. It's not the easiest time to be a medic, but those are the breaks, I guess. I'm not really sure of any underrated YouTuber. I think every YouTuber is technically underrated as much of you have the balls to do something I won't. And I'm an artist in my personal life. I probably have the same amount of movies you do, but I am too lazy after work to review and show them to everyone. You guys have essentially created your own TV shows that don't depend on ratings. That's ultra cool. Stay safe. Keep up the good videos. They definitely help pass some downtime. Thank you, man. And keep safe out there. As a medic, should be definitely get hazard pay. Hudson, Tom E. Walnuts. Very underrated YouTuber. He does a bit of everything, but mostly horror and figures and soundtracks. Is it Walruts or Walnuts? You put Walruts. I always thought it was Walnuts. I'm not surprised you're not feeling it watching all these movies every week. It can turn into a slog. You're probably burnt out. Why don't you take a break? We'll still be here when you get back. Just chill with your feet up, a few beers, and a movie. Thanks. Yeah, Toddy Walnuts buys a lot of stuff, and he shows it off in a nice way, too. He's good. Irish Mad Dog 1987. Can't really think of one underrated YouTuber in particular. Explosive Action is a great channel. Horror in TOJ. I love Explosive Action. I really need to get back to watching more videos. I remember he does a great job. Horror in TOG. That's just abbreviated. I can't think of what it is. Horrific Nightmares. Eastwood for Life fan. Cinema Maniac 77 all come to mind. Carly has come a long way. Her reviews get better all the time. All great channels that film fans need to check out. If you guys want links to any of these, go to my Facebook page. People posted links for all of them. So under that question, you'll find it pretty easy. Nick Mua. Don't know if I'm enough of a YouTube connoisseur to judge who's underrated, but I think Red Letter Media, Jay and Mike should get more love. They get a lot of love, but they are pretty good. They review a wide variety of films, both studio and indie, and an occasional TV show. They do their reviews with style, occasionally adding a little comedy acting segments, or they invent interesting guests to co-host, i.e. Patton Oswalt, Macaulay Culkin. They do catch a lot of flack because they're very outspoken and seem to have distaste for celebrity woke culture. Okay. Then we have Adrian Hall, Preston McDowell, Jim Blunt, Tanner James. Tanner is great. Mike Mitchell, Brendan Tennard, Jason Patrick. Oh, wait, sorry. He says, this guy literally kills me. And he posts a video of this Ghoulies rant to get you in the end 80s horror movie, Mountaintop 9. I have seen that guy before. He's pretty good. Jeremy Freeman, he posts a video of Weekend Fright, who makes a comedy video. David Luton says me. Jason Lindbergh, you. Don't really have a list of those. I'm old. Tony of the Dead posts Tony of the Dead. And Jason Patrick, since everyone is shouting themselves out, I say these two are underrated. And he posted a video of him, of hers and his movie night YouTube channel, All Night Horror Movie Marathon. Zach Killingsworth, Dan Bell, Sean Donahue, Beth Ann, Tyler Miller, Chip Parton, miss his updates. I think this is kind of fun because Chip Parton actually replied. Haven't heard of them also, but been active in collecting recently. I did score an Aru films on VHS last year, which is a huge deal for me. But most everything else is the usual, like Arrow and Blue Underground and Severn. I would never sell this collection. I wish I had time to keep hunting down all the rare limited releases I used to. I have a few cars I'm restoring and I have to build my house. Then hopefully I can ease back into it. I really do miss it. I still love that community a lot. So that's really cool, Chip Parton. I remember he used to review on the DVD Fiends. Ryan Matthew Ziegler posts Malevolent Movies and Chase Tahit. Andrew McLeod posts View World Cinema. Thomas Filano, my buddy Brother Max, who used to run 2 Ton Nerds, now has a channel. It has more than just horror, video games, music, movie, books, whatever he wants to talk about. The one and only MSJ. That's the channel name. Henry Freehan Leons, me. Everybody's making jokes like that. Daryl Marsh, Deadbug says. Then Henry Frias Leon says, I would vote for Dave Parka for always being awesome. Blu-ray DVD reviews. Your updates, you are a legend. Thank you. Randall McDougall post himself. Randall Sun 44. Wayne Wright. Seth Poland. Seth Poland is very good. Celluloid Tear. Timothy Tahoe Callan. Sean Frankie Slauson, my son. Andy Nett Frost Carsons. Descent into Horror Hell. Marco Vintian. Cool duder. And then he puts a little wink. Stephen Rubens. Tanner James. Tanya Torrance. Dr. Wolfula. Tom Brunner. I pretty much hate YouTubers. You and Mummy and the Monkey are the only ones I look at. She's pretty cool. She does a kind of horror host thing on YouTube. Jonathan Doe. A shout out would be greatly appreciated. And he posts his channel, Cinema's Underbelly. Jason Fredders, Chris Seaver. Check it out. Check his It Crept from the 80s series. And Mr. Tony the Dead also puts Candy Corn Apocalypse. Jason Johnson. Inside Movies Galore. David Streg. Strege, Streg. Zach Puccinelli, Movie Guy 666. This page is sticking together. There we go. Mark Humphreys, you do proper reviews, but I also watch Retro Horror, Moods, Serial at Midnight, and Terror for Tom a lot, but I don't know who's underrated on. Unrated or not. Brian Gatto, The Cinema Masochist, Good or Bad, Good Bad Flicks, Reanimator Reviews, Meat Hook, Confused Reviews, Dave Maggot, and of course, Horror Show Host, my channel. And he says, despite having nearly 80,000 subs on it, recently started reviewing movies on my channel and looking for more of an audience. Then we have Jake Perry, Most Underrated, Eric Exton, God in a Machine on YouTube. He also posts Official Submachine, and Jason Hobbs posts It's a Tie, The Horror Man, or David Maggot McDowell, and MD Mags. Andre Scott, Rambo Ralph for Life, and OCP Communications are 2 of my favorites. And then I have some old answers here. Let me find this. And this is from Viper Rose 1978. And he was answering basically, this is just some information I put. Well, back-to-back weeks with a movie in my top 5. What can I say about Death Wish 3? It's a total action movie in my eyes, so over the top, it's amusing. I think the thing I love about Bronson in this is his humor. Even when he's trying not to be funny and is still a badass at his age. Why do I love indie movies? This is the answer. The cheese and the overall creativity that is needed because the filmmakers usually don't have the money the big studios do, so they have to improvise more. It's just easier to take my eyes than some big budget CGI filled film. And then we have some information which are basically some comments I wanted to read that I thought were fun or informative or heartfelt or something. BTK. Thank you for the 1985 reviews. 1985 was a huge year for me as a 19-year-old breaking free from parents and moving to a different part of the country. Ended up in a larger city with greater ease for seeing movies, especially older B movies and horror at repertory theaters. Then we have, he says, I'm always happy to see your weekly posts on YouTube, especially now with the crisis we're all experiencing. Thank you. Heads up, if you have a region-free player, Arrow UK site having a sale that just started, I moved quickly because sometimes some titles in their sale sell out fast. I did order like 8, and I cashed my Arrow points too. And I didn't even register I had the Arrow points. I actually cashed my Arrow points and got 21 pounds off. So that's how much over the years I've ordered from them. Ilk Vomit, I'm with Jeremy on Fright Night. A lot of my big love for the heavy hitters in horror come from the fact that I have nostalgia attached to them. When I was growing up, I don't ever recall my parents renting Fright Night. In fact, I didn't really get acquainted with the movie until I was 17 or 18. I like the movie, but I just don't love it. But I feel I should, but I just don't. LOL. I know the feeling. Sometimes it happens. The question of the week is to keep you guys like busy and to learn some more podcasts. I want to know what the most underrated podcast is. So just shoot out some underrated podcasts for me. I'm going to read off the just 20 podcasts I listen to. Not necessarily underrated or anything like that, but if you guys are bored at home or need something to listen to, I'm going to give you 20 podcasts that I listen to. We have some big ones like Shockwaves. No order either. Pure Cinema Podcast, The Movies That Made Me, The Last Podcast on the Left. Shockwaves is great. I'll just go over a little bit about them. They have a 4-host, tremendous. Been listening to them for years. Formerly Killer POV. Pure Cinema Podcast is also tremendous. They cover all sorts of movies. I found out about some real gems on that. The Movies That Made Me is Joe Dante, and geez, I can't believe I forgot his name. He wrote History of Violence. They basically do a podcast where they invite people on there and they talk about movies that they made their careers and everything that that they loved growing up. Last Podcast Left is a serial killers and a cult kind of podcast, very big. Everybody knows it. Bloody Good Horror is a fairly mainstream horror review website. It has some pretty funny people on there. I've always enjoyed hearing them. If you want to hear like a PG rated show, go with them. They're very good. And we have some Horrorphilia shows. 22 Shots of Moods and Horror, one of my favorites. I guested on there. Lots of good guys. Moods, JP, Jeremy. Exploding Heads podcast went strictly Patreon, but listen to their old stuff and see if you want to donate to their Patreon. Very good show, very good guys, very good back and forth. The Wat Z podcast, Dave Z and Watson, they both come from different podcasts. Very good, very new podcast. I think they're on like episode 13 or something. Very good, very informative, cut into like 4 parts. Good stuff. The Horror Corridor, which is about to end. It's a Mr. Watson podcast. He dives deep and covers subjects and everything like that. Really well produced, really well thought out. Bloody Bits, which is basically just a bunch of people from other podcasts coming together to review a bunch of VOD titles. It's ran by Jason Lloyd, who runs Horror Mafia. Good show. The Horror Mafia itself, who runs Horrorphilia, not Horror Mafia. Sorry about that. If I said Horror Mafia last time. The Horror Mafia, which is also a decent podcast, really good stuff, really funny, enjoy it. It's been in hiatus for a while, but some of the other guys popped out, Joey and Bill, and they're doing another podcast on the side, so check that out too. The Horrorcast, ran by Mark Nato and a bunch of people on there. They cover a lot of newer movies, and then they're doing a Hammer segment, which I like. Obviously, I'm doing the same thing. That's one of the shows I would listen to hear about newer horror movies, because if anybody sees any more new horror movies than Mark Nato, I don't believe them, because this guy watches all the new movies, everything. Cinema Attack, which is Derek B's show, Derek Bourgeois. Also has Matt Canner on there and W Doubles. They do all sorts of things on there, different kinds of movies. They also have a Cinematic Autopsy, which are Cinematic Dissection. I can't remember, but it's another like sister podcast. It's on the same feed. Also a good show. His and Hers Horror Movie Podcast. JP and Carly do a nice. They dive in a lot of newer movies and they talk a little bit about stuff they've been doing and watching, everything like that. It's a nice couple kind of show. They're Here is a cool podcast that just came out. I've been listening to that a lot lately. Has Derek B and Lacey Lou on there. That's pretty cool. I like sometimes that they'll pick movies for each other. I always dig that. The podcast Under the Stairs, I just started listening to them recently, man, and the guy on there, Duncan McLeish, I believe is his name, Scottish guy. He does a lot of stuff, puts a lot of content out, good voice, and his Summer of Fear, like summer shows where they cover like a whole decade, was tremendous. They did like the arguments of the 90s and everything like that, really like that. Coast to Coast Film Reviews, which is David Gibson's show, I dig that one. They'll do like top shows and have guests occasionally. It's pretty fast-paced, pretty entertaining, good stuff. Just the Disc, Brian Sauer's other podcast. He also does Pure Cinema Podcast with Elric Kane. Just the Disc is fun. They talk about new releases and dive into the special features. The Screamcast, which has Stephanie Crawford on there. Love her. Also has Brad Henderson. He's really good. And geez, I can't think of the other guy's name. I feel bad because I listen to the show all the time. It's probably because I haven't heard an episode in quite some time, but very good show, very enjoyable. And The Last Daughters of Darkness, which is Sam Deegan, Kat Ellinger's show. I don't even know if it's still running, but it was on the Diabolique website, I think, and that was a tremendous podcast. They do commentaries and everything, so they're really well educated in horror and everything, and their podcasts were very good at the same time. So I hope you guys enjoyed that just 20 podcasts to listen to. I'm not going to link them all, but the names are pretty easy to find on Stitcher, iTunes, or wherever you have podcast feeds for. But I guess we're going to hop into the update. Okay, let's hop into this fairly decent size update. First, we have Arrow's release of Beyond the Door. This is like a collector's edition. Evil Grows Beyond the Door. Yeah, has a Blu-ray and a booklet in there. Got a bunch of features, limited 2-disc. Got 2 versions on there. This book is pretty awesome. Got a good price on it. So, sold out pretty quick, actually. Man, this thing's nice. You know, I've actually never seen it. A lot of the Exorcist ripoffs were never really my thing. So I never watched that many of them. I mean, I love, like, some possession movies like Evil Speak, but I really do need to watch this. I've seen the sequels. Well, you know, those funny, weird sequels, like, what is it? Shock is one, and Amok Train is one. I don't even know why, but they are. I've seen both of those, but I've never watched the original Beyond the Door, which is kind of weird. It's going to take me a while to put this bad boy back together. I don't want to just throw it all together. Got to be delicate with it. Man, that's a nice box and everything like that. Like I said, so if you want this, grab it quick before it goes out of print. Then we have a bunch from the Target sale. They had the buy two get one, which is an amazing sale. So you get, I got The Killing Time with Kiefer Sutherland. It's got Joe Don Baker and Beau Bridges in there too. Not seen this. Looks like a thriller. Scorpion Kino. Then I always pick up my Scream Factories on the Target buy one get one or the Hamilton book sale. So we got Pet Sematary 2. Yeah, I just couldn't pay $25, $30 for this, so I waited. I'm glad. I always enjoyed this one as a kid. Not seen it in a long time. I love Edward Furlong, but I love Clancy Brown more. Yeah, I remember it being cheesy, but hey, been a while. Exorcist 2, The Heretic. Yeah, I heard nothing good about this movie, really. I heard it's fairly interesting, though, on Just the Disc podcast, so I decided to grab it, and I got a good deal on it. And I have 1 and 3 in good editions, so I better have 2, right? And I am interested. If I do watch it, I want some context in it. John Boorman's directed a lot of good movies, so I don't know how bad it can be. We have Dreamscape. Finally got this one. Always wanted this edition. Never saw this movie, you know. I know it has some weird, crazy dream stuff in there. David Patrick Kelly's the bad guy. I think it predates. Is David Patrick Kelly the bad guy in this one? There he is, yeah. He is in there. So is Christopher Plummer's also in there. I know it predates Nightmare on Elm Street. It came around the same time, so cool. Then we got Metal Storm. The Destruction of Jared Sin. I wanted to see this one too. Again, Scream Factory release. Got a good deal on it finally. Was super happy to grab this one. Experience the future in 3D. Then we have Warning Sign. Watched the DVD of this recently. Like this one. It's another Scream Factory. Finally got upgraded. This is a pretty solid thriller horror movie. Like it. Good stuff. Then we have Lake Placid. Haven't seen this since... I think I saw this in the theater was the last time I saw this movie. I was always okay with it. A lot of people like it a lot more than me. So I think if I rewatch it, maybe I'll get more of the humor and dig it. It was a good price, though, and I wanted to recheck it out. So there's Brandon Gleeson. I was just talking about him. Tremendous actor. Then we have Windows. This sounded right up my alley. Somebody Loves Emily Too Much. What a great name. I love that cover, too. I know this movie got flack from the LGBT community when it came out, along with Cruising. And I love Cruising, so I don't know. Maybe I'll like this one, too. I mean, I don't care. Like, there's a lot of characters that are portrayed negatively, and I don't know if it's supposed to be taken as offensive, you know. But hey, sometimes people take it the way they do. We have Tarantula, which Jeremy picked as one of his 26 movies for next season. Not seen this one. Giant spider strikes crawling tear 100 feet high. One of these atomic age horror movies. Then we got a double feature of Love at First Bite and Once Bitten. I know you guys... I remember I hate it. I don't like Once Bitten. But I'm pretty sure this one's going out of print soon. A lot of the MGM ones are. So, I am interested in Love at First Bite. So why the hell not? So good price on that. And I guess we're going to hop back to the video. All right, I just wanted to have a Patreon shout out to Travis Wright. Thank you again for joining the Patreon. I know I was a little late on that shout out, but I hope that's all right. I want to say thank you guys very much for watching. As always, you guys have a good one.